Data Privacy Act. Bar Exam Notes Part 4. General Data Privacy Principles. Question: is processing of personal information prohibited? Suggested answer: no, it is not prohibited but merely regulated. The processing of personal information is allowed but subject to compliance with the requirements of the Data Privacy Act and adherence to the principles of transparency, legitimate purpose, and proportionality. Question: what are the general data privacy principles? Suggested answer: the general principles of data privacy are transparency, legitimate purpose, and proportionality. See Section 11 of the Data Privacy Act. Question: who is responsible in ensuring that processing of personal information adheres to the principles set by the Data Privacy Act? Suggested answer: the Personal Information Controller is responsible in ensuring implementation of personal information processing principles. Question: can entities outsource the processing of personal information? Suggested answer: yes, it is allowed, but the Personal Information Controller shall still be responsible for ensuring that proper safeguards. Question: what are the specific rules on data privacy? 1. Personal information must be collected for specified and legitimate purposes. 2. The purpose must be determined and declared before, or as soon as reasonably practicable after collection. 3. Personal information must be processed in a way compatible with such declared, specified and legitimate purposes only. 4. Personal information must be processed fairly and lawfully. 5. Personal information must be accurate. 6. Personal information must be relevant. 7. Personal information must be kept up to date where necessary for purposes for which it is to be used. 8. Inaccurate or incomplete data must be rectified, supplemented, destroyed or their further processing restricted. 9. Personal information collected must be adequate and not excessive in relation to the purposes for which they are collected and processed. 10. Personal information must be retained only for as long as necessary for the fulfillment of the purposes for which the data was obtained or for the establishment, exercise or defense of legal claims, or for legitimate business purposes, or as provided by law. 11. Personal information must be kept in a form which permits identification of data subjects for no longer than is necessary for the purposes for which the data were collected and processed. And 12. Personal information collected for other purposes may lie processed for historical, statistical or scientific purposes, and in cases laid down in law may be stored for longer periods. In addition, the implementing rules and regulations of the law added the following specific rules. 1. Consent is required prior to the collection and processing of personal data, subject to exemptions provided by the Act and other applicable laws and regulations. 2. When consent is required, it must be time-bound in relation to the declared, specified and legitimate purpose. 3. Consent given may be withdrawn. 4. Processing shall uphold the rights of the data subject, including the right to refuse, withdraw consent, or object. 5. Processing shall be transparent, and allow the data subject sufficient information to know the nature and extent of processing. 6. Information provided to a data subject must always be in clear and plain language to ensure that they are easy to understand and access. 7. Processing shall be undertaken in a manner that ensures appropriate privacy and security safeguards. Thank you for listening. Watch out for the next video on general principles for data sharing.